Hello and welcome back to another episode of Exos Heroes, and today we'll be taking a look at the new Fate Core that has just been released, the Strongest Sheep, Brook. And as always, if you enjoy this episode, if you find it informative, please leave a like and subscribe. But with that being said, let's jump in and look at what Brook has to offer. And frankly, upon first glance, I really like Brook. I think there's definitely a few different ways you can utilize him to a very high level. And I think that she can be a very fun character to play with. First of all, let's take a look at her skills. So A1 now does 225% damage to a single target, costs 2 mana, and the turn resets if you get a kill. So that's pretty good. The damage itself at 225 for 2 mana is okay. The turn reset is very useful, so I like it. The second skill is, I think in my opinion, probably one of the bigger upgrades. Now it does 750% damage to a single target, costs 4 mana, and has the burst active. That is a very strong skill. This is essentially the equivalent of Raleigh's A2. Tremendous amount of single target damage, and obviously Brook is an attack hero, so she's going to be able to utilize this multiplier to very high effect. Great skill. Obviously the only issue that you might run into is the 4 mana cost, right? That is relatively high, and being able to use that on a consistent basis is something that you have to think about. However, this is where her passive comes in. And I think the combination of her passive and A2 is going to be crazy when it comes to DPS. So now let's take a look at her passive. So obviously she starts with the counter 2 passive, that's great. She also retained the Dragon Hunter Blessing passive, and that makes her a great option for the weekend dragon rounds. So if you guys do have her, make sure to put her into your team for those Holy Dragon rounds during the weekend. And also, as a part of the Reverse World Fate Core string, she also has the Barrier of Will, just like everyone else in this lineup. And that's a tricky one to think about and evaluate, because it's very good when it comes to saving you from immediate damage, right? Whenever you take 70% or more maximum health, it'll kick in right away during that turn and mitigate the damage that's coming in by 50% for 2 turns. So on that front, it's very good, but it comes with a debuff for the 3 turns following that, which means you will be taking more damage over those 3 turns. So you have to be very careful when this skill procs. So if you do see this passive proc and you know there are other heroes on the opposing team that's going to take their turn, you want to either make sure you heal up Brook as fast as possible, or perhaps, if you have someone who has CC, to CC the opposing team, whether through provoke or stun, things like that. Otherwise, you just have to pray that they don't target Brook, because taking additional 30% damage for 3 turns can easily get Brook killed. And lastly, Brook also got a unique passive, and this is quite a surprise given that he is a Black Fate Core. I was not prepared to see him get another passive, because those are typically reserved for the Gold Fate Core, so that's very interesting. So let's take a look. Angry Lamb. This is a fantastic skill. So what it does is, if the caster has a removable buff, or a recovery effect, or a positive effect applied to them, then the caster, so in this case Brook, will attack with an ally whenever the ally attacks. This is really strong, because what it means is that Brook will be able to consistently attack the opponent whenever he has, a buff or recovery on him, and that allows him to generate mana. So not only will he be able to do damage on a more consistent basis, because he will be double teaming the opponent's team with another ally, but it also counts as an auto attack, so he generates mana, so by the time he gets to his turn, he will be able to have enough mana to use his crazy damage A2. And frankly, the synergy between this new passive and his A2 is just amazing. But one thing we do like to point out is that it does require you to have another hero to set up Brook, because obviously you need someone to give him that removable buff, you need someone to give him a recovery effect in order for this skill to proc. So that is something you have to keep in mind, and that brings us to the next section of our review, which is what kind of buff actually works. So we've done some testing, and it seems there are a few things that wouldn't work with this. So let's cover the basic stuff. So anything that's like increased hit, increased damage, increased critical hit, all the buffs like that, will allow Brook to proc his Angry Lamb passive, so that's pretty good. One of the heroes that we were playing around earlier with is Sernando, and Sernando has this A1 that allows him to increase allies' critical hit for 14 turns, and in our opinion that's amazing, because obviously increased critical hit is great because then Brook can crit a lot more often, and at the same time 14 turns is probably one of the longest that we've ever seen. So we were just playing around with it, but I thought it was very interesting. And we did a practice run with Brook and Sernando together through the Blessing Sanctum, which we'll show you guys in the background as we talk more about this. On the other hand, we've also tested a few other skills. So specifically, we've tried Tranquil with Battery, and that didn't work. I think that's more or less expected. We've also tried to pair Brook with Annie. I thought that would be a very interesting combination. However, Annie's Burning Soul also doesn't work. We've tried Brook with Summer Festa heroes, thinking that maybe Summer's Blessing could work, because Summer's Blessing is something that, it doesn't last forever, right? It can be procced and can be removed. However, it has been confirmed that Summer's Blessing also does not work either. So that's kind of a bummer. I was hoping that Summer Blessing would work, but I guess the game doesn't really consider it as a removable buff. On the other hand, one thing that has been confirmed that does work is Dorka's Soulbound passive, because I think it counts as a recovery effect, even though it is not removable, but it is considered as a recovery, and that's very powerful and making Brook and Dorka probably one of the better combinations, at least for Brook, because obviously Dorka's Soulbound passive will apply at the very beginning of the fight. That means from the start of every single fight, Brook will be attacking alongside of every other ally all the time, and that is super powerful. As we mentioned before, being able to just add that additional damage each time is great, and also because Brook's attack comes after the ally's attack, it also works as a way to function as a final hit. So for example, if someone gets saved by the Tranquil, Brook will then go in and finish them off. So that's a really good skill to have, and more importantly, as we mentioned before, this will allow Brook to essentially generate mana for himself so he can use his A2 on a consistent basis. So in our opinion, Brook and Dorka, that synergy is just absolutely amazing. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Brook being utilized more in the PvP area in the coming weeks. I think he has a lot of potential when it comes to DPS. He's also very fast as an attacker. So all in all, it really sets him up as one of the better DPS in the game, in my opinion, at this point. So lastly, let's talk a little bit about how you want to build Brook in terms of giving him the equipment set from the Guardian Stone perspective, as well as what kind of awakening effect you're looking for. I think one of the things that works best with Brook is Nature Set. I do think Nature Set, with its dodge bonus, definitely offers a lot of utility for Brook, because one thing we want to talk about is Brook is an attack hero, right? So given that he is not particularly tanky, so things like Fire Set and stuff like that sometimes can go to waste a little bit, because they do take so much damage that even at 20% damage reduction will not be able to save them. And this is especially true given that Brook's Barrier of Will passive puts him at a more vulnerable state after a few turns. So in our opinion, the best option to go with would be the Nature Set, which allows him to have a higher dodge rate. So you can dodge incoming attacks and avoid taking damage altogether. This can be very critical during times where you are vulnerable, which will allow you to negate damage completely if you can dodge them. Obviously, it's RNG dependent, but in our opinion, it is still the best option out there. Alternatively, the Darkness set can also be very good. Because of how frequent Brook attacks, she will be able to then go in and start to heal up over time. And I think this combined with the healing bonus coming from Dorka would be very good. And obviously it becomes even more crucial if you're not pairing Brook with Dorka. All the other sets I think are relatively mediocre on Brook. An argument can be made for Fire set because it does allow you to take a little bit less damage. And in fact, if you do use the Fire set to awaken Brook, then it offers the highest amount of HP for her and allow her to then utilize that 30% missing health bonus from the Dorka healing a little bit more effectively as well. So the Fire set is not a bad option. The Darkness set is also not terrible either. But in my opinion, the go-to option would still be the nature set because one, higher base dodge just makes it a lot better in my opinion. It's always my go-to choice when it comes to damage dealers. And on the other hand, when it comes to awakening bonus, right, it gives you 2000 HP, which is decent, not as high as fire, but it's decent, and it still gives you plus 12 dodge rate as well. So the combination of those two, I think, is probably the best balance between a little bit of consistent tankiness and a little bit of that RNG reliant luck factor. But there you have it, that's our thought on Brook. It'd be interesting to see if he gets a lot of playtime over the next few weeks. Obviously today in the game there are a lot of great heroes when it comes to DPS, and that is a hard place to break into. But I think Brook has the ability to potentially, go up there and play among the big guys. The guys like Rira or Bathory. And luckily for us, she is actually one of the first. I believe she is the first fake core we've ever gotten. And frankly, we haven't really used her all that much other than during our weekend dragon rounds. But now I think we just might give her a little bit more thought and consideration when it comes to looking for a DPS option. And I think this week particularly is the tag team week, so we're very excited to try her out in a few different places and see what we can do with her. Unfortunately, we don't have Dorka, so that is a little bit of a bummer, but we'll test it out with maybe Fernando and a few other heroes and just see what we can get out of her. We know that the first Guardian Fake Core re-banner is going on right now, so that's something to consider if you're still going for Rira, or right, if you don't have Rira and you're going for Rira, I would still say that Rira is the better option. But if you're not high on any of the first Guardians at the moment, or if you already have the ones that you want, I would highly consider give Brook a try, because I do think she has a lot of potential here. But with that being said, that's our review of the Brook Fake Core. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, hopefully you guys found it informative. If you have a different idea or different thoughts, please let us know in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. And with that, hopefully you have a great week, and we'll see you in the next episode very soon. Bye bye.